2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
We're about to go into a dark winter. A dark winter.
The darkest winter in modern history.
The darkest winter. The Dark Winter exercise took place in June 2001, only months before the 9/11 attacks. This exercise took place at Andrews Air Force Base in Camp Springs, Maryland, and involved several congressmen, a former CIA director, a former FBI director, government insiders, and privileged members of the press. The exercise simulated the use of smallpox as a biological weapon against the American public. During the Dark Winter exercise, authorities attempted to stop the spread of dangerous misinformation and unverified cures, just like with the Event 201 simulation. Dark Winter further discusses the suppression and removal of civil liberties, such as the possibility of the president to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would allow the military to act as law enforcement upon request by a state governor, as well as the possibility of martial rule. The script says martial rule may, quote, include, but are not limited to, prohibition of free assembly, national travel ban, quarantine of certain areas, suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, and/or military trials in the event that the court systems become dysfunctional. What is important to know is that Dark Winter was largely written and designed by Tara O'Toole and Thomas Inglesby of the Johns Hopkins Center, along with Randy Larson and Mark Demir of the Analytic Services Institute for Homeland Security. O'Toole, Inglesby, and Larson were directly involved in the response to the alleged anthrax attacks, which took place in the days after September 11, 2001. These individuals personally briefed Vice President Cheney on Dark Winter. Coincidentally, Event 201 was co-hosted by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, which is currently led by Dark Winter co-author Thomas Inglesby. Tara O'Toole was also a key player in the Clade X simulation. The name for the exercise comes from a statement made by Robert Cadleck, a veteran of the George W. Bush administration and a former lobbyist for military intelligence and intelligence contractors. In the script, Cadleck states that the lack of smallpox vaccines for the U.S. population means that it, quote, could be a very dark winter for America.
Angie, it means it could be a very dark winter for America.
Cadleck is now currently leading the HHS's COVID-19 response and was also involved in the Trump administration's 2019 Crimson Contagion exercises. Eerily, Cadleck's statements in the 2001 exercise were recently repeated nearly word for word by Richard Bright, former director of Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. Bright was recently celebrated as a whistleblower who attempted to hold the Trump administration accountable during the COVID-19 battle. However, while speaking in front of Congress, Bright stated,
"Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history."
Now, maybe Bright is simply a concerned scientist warning about the potential for more sick people, but his use of the phrase darkest winter is hard to ignore here. When hearing the statements from Cadleck and Bright, we ought to consider the corporate media's promotion of a potential second wave of COVID-19. Bill Gates and other influential pundits and health authorities have consistently warned about a second wave which was slated to arrive in the fall of 2020. As of mid-October 2020, reports are beginning to come in that cases are on the rise. This is what makes the statement from Richard Bright all the more concerning.
If we fail to improve our response now, based on science, I fear the pandemic will get worse and be prolonged. There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It'll be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza. Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
If the basics aren't followed, there is only one way this pandemic is going to go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Let's just go back to the emerging world and the scale of damage that this pandemic is going to do. Do you think that the worst is over there, or is the worst still ahead?
No, the worst is still ahead because...
Britain is braced for a dark winter as new measures are deployed to stem a surge of coronavirus.
New signs of a fall surge and perhaps an even more painful winter as coronavirus cases soar in the U.S.
We're about to go into a dark winter, a dark winter. There's a need for bold action to fight this pandemic. We're still facing a very dark winter. There are now nearly 10 million COVID cases in the United States.
Unless we all recommit to the common sense measures that got us past the first horrendous months of this pandemic, we are in for a long, dark winter.
The numbers are all going in the wrong direction, and we are facing a very dark winter.
Our predictive modeling shows this going until March of next year if we don't change something. So for us, it could be a long, dark winter in Dodge County.
It's just not safe. And it might not be safe for a while yet.
So I guess the question is this what a dark winter looks like, or do you forecast that this is going to get worse in coming weeks?
Well, I want to be straight with the American people. It's going to get worse over the next several weeks, but the actions that we take in the next several days will determine how bad it is or whether or not we continue to flatten our curve. And
But the reality is December and January and February are going to be rough times. I actually believe they're going to be the most difficult time in the public health history of this nation.
The effects of Thanksgiving, they have not yet been felt. They will be felt in a number of weeks. Dr. Fauci, I think, said it best. He says we should anticipate a surge on top of a surge.
And the messages now that have to be sent about maintaining, strengthening, and extending those public health measures, wearing masks, avoiding large gatherings, social distancing, proper ventilation if you are inside, all of those measures have to be continued. States and localities will need, as Mayor Lightfoot was talking about, to strengthen the public health precautions and protections during this period to limit spread. And we have to recognize that we cannot have a patchwork approach to this. We have to have a systematic approach.
So let's institute a mask mandate nationwide, starting immediately, and we will save lives. This is not about Democrat, Republican, or Independent. We're about to go into a dark winter, We're still facing a very dark winter.
The darkest winter in modern history.
A long, dark winter.
A long, dark winter.
A very dark winter.
So I guess the question is this what a dark winter looks like, or do you forecast that this is going to get worse in coming weeks?
Well, I want to be straight with the American people. It's going to get worse over the next several weeks.
I want to be straight with you. There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future.